Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Process and Automation podcast with the Automation Guys. In today's episode, we will be looking at RPA use cases. Recently, we had a couple of sessions about chatbot use cases, and we received plenty of feedback, and and this is why we're covering RPA use cases today. So use cases seem to be very popular because it applies to real business problems, and where intelligent automation tools like RPA or process mining and chatbots can actually solve these problems. And so let's get started with a few. I think there are so many we could cover. We selected just a list of sort of very common use cases. And Arno, what do you think will be sort of the number one or one of the number one use cases we see?
Well, I think it's hard, Sascha, to actually put one at the top. Of course, for our listeners, just as a refresher on RPA theory, of course, RPA can be used to automate repetitive tasks, both in your back and your front office where human intervention is required. And, and this is from kind of data entry type activities, data extraction, to invoice processing, batch processing. So I think it's important to realize that RPA can be deployed across a business. And if we look at some of the kind of common areas where we see strong use cases for RPA exist, that's in processes like your quote to cash. And of course, every business has a quote to cash process in some sort of way, even if they don't know it. This is where you sell either a product or a service. And, what happens is that you provide that service offering, and there's a lot of steps that happens in between that's kind of related to providing that product or that service. And at the end of the day, when you deliver that, that's when you obviously produce your revenue. We see quote to cash as a really important one. It's kind of like a core use case for every business. And of course, automation within inside that process is really important because that reduces the rate of manual errors. It provides you faster service to your customers because automation can speed up this process. Customers will, for instance, receive their products, their services quicker. They'll receive their invoices quicker, and that would lead to sort of earlier payments and improve cash flow, and overall reduce the errors in this process, which reduce your business cost, for example.
Absolutely. So this is an important one, and as we cover in lots of these use cases. The more structured data you have in your business, I think the easier it is to automate those things. And in RPA, you could say, it's your digital worker. And you as a human worker, you look at the document, you can immediately identify patterns and structured data out of maybe a letter or invoice or something else. And in general, if your bot needs to do all that work, we need to support these bots, these digital workers. And if you can then convert unstructured data to structured data, then you can really accelerate that automation even more. And that's so important as well in the other process. So quote to cash is you sending your invoices, you sending your quotes out to customers. The other very important one is you're procuring stuff for your business to maybe produce things, or you just receive services from other companies. So the purchase, procure to pay, source to pay process, it's very, very important. And some might think, hey, these processes are around for years. All the problems around that process should be already tackled. No, I think that's I think that's far from it. Companies, yeah, and we have also growing companies who are just starting to tackle the procure to pay. When you just think about a growing startup, so maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago, they just had a few supplier invoices, but suddenly they become sort of a market leader in providing services, and suddenly they have to procure a lot of stuff, and they have to handle this influx of invoices. So
Yeah.
yeah, procure to pay really involves extracting invoices and payment data from so multiple systems like supplier emails. So this is a very typical one. Email comes in, it will be maybe forwarded to a manager to approve. Someone is approving it, and then it goes somewhere. It goes to the finance person. But doing all that stuff manually, going into the ERP systems, CRM systems, going into the bank, into logistic systems to just collect all that data which is related to procure to pay. So I think that's very, very slow and error prone. But I think that's where RPA comes in. It can sort of build that glue between all these systems, can fill these integration gaps, and it can. And it's a light touch. You don't need you need complex projects to get it done, because it's you mainly working on the front ends. It can provide that easy way to do that automation without involving too much developers, etc. So yeah, extracting data from invoices, intelligent document processing. I think that kind of stuff is super important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, this is cash leaving your business. So you want to have a really good handle on that. You want to have a kind of single source of the truth for all of these transactions. You want to be able to look into those and make sure that those transactions are really robust, but as automated as possible with the right sort of governance around it, without throwing too much people to it, to do manual processing. The third one we want to look at, we dealt with sort of receiving money, paying out money in your business. And of course, the third one is all to do with customer onboarding. So, most businesses do have a customer onboarding process that's really critical to get right, get those customers onboarded, to make sure that their products and services can be offered very quickly to them. And these days you can use very sophisticated OCR and cognitive automation, to automate the customer onboarding activities. And some of these things can be done instantaneously, where you even have got legacy systems in the background. When you plug in those right automation technologies in front of it, then your customer onboarding journey can be really, really lean. It can be very fast. In one study we see done earlier this year, it was done by WorkFusion. It was for a major bank, and their customer onboarding process reduced from 20 days to only 5 minutes. Wow. Because what they did is they used all of their legacy systems, but they plugged in all of this progressive automation tech in front of it, including RPA, to absolutely drastically reduce that onboarding journey, from weeks to minutes, which is incredible, and I think that is the kind of expectation and the benchmark, out there for these types of processes. And I think, in a day we live today, and with kind of customer retention and customer satisfaction being such an important thing, it is, in my view, a sort of a no-brainer in terms of use cases.
Yeah, and very often these use cases, you just mentioned the 20 days to 5 minutes, and very often you then hear, all those programs are only there for reducing FTEs within businesses, and very often that's what you see in ROI calculators, isn't it? So how much FTEs you might save, but we both are really strong believers that these initiatives or these technologies shouldn't be focused on reducing FTEs. So it's just really offloading this mundane and repetitive work, isn't it, from your FTEs, and then because businesses generally have the desire to grow, to use the sort of the freed up time to grow the business and use the manpower, the human power, to really on the topics just humans or humans do best. So sometimes you read these very impressive figures. You save FTEs, but you probably would better describe it like you free up time for 67 FTEs to do something else. Sometimes I think some of the statistics are a bit negative you read. So the results are impressive if you're a major company and you can reduce it from 20 minutes to 20 days to 5 minutes. But it should be all about how can you reduce your sort of capacity in the business, or not reduce, improve your capacity with your workforce.
Exactly.
Other really common areas and business functions we look at is data migration and data entry. So we know they are legacy systems. I think there's probably no real big enterprise out there without legacy systems. But these systems perform critical functions at companies, and even at banks, there are old COBOL systems and old terminal systems still available, and they do some of the critical number crunching. So billing systems, so all that stuff. Can't be really pulled out sort of with APIs in a modern sense. And in the modern world, you have a nice API, but if you can't really get to it, you need to find other ways. And the old way was maybe exporting a CSV file or exporting data really, really difficult, just copying it manually from one system to another. And with RPA, you can now really use or you can use RPA for going into this old legacy system, let the digital worker do that work, and you can transfer that data out error free, and you can do it all year round. No one has to work in the basement somewhere where this old terminal belongs. You can get that data out really, really, really reliable. And then you take that data and you maybe update this into other more modern systems you have, and that could be hundreds of different systems you need to update regularly. RPA can then go. It's similar, like lots of arms going into these different systems, and just making these changes. So sometimes. So you might forget even about your legacy systems because you put this very powerful glue in between. At some point, these systems probably will be migrated, and there will be proper APIs. And then you need to look at other things, how you connect this. Then you look probably at integrated integration platform as a service. But until then, RPA is a good friend and to get these use cases covered.
Yeah, and you speak about sort of data migration and data entry into various systems, but I also think another really, really good use case for RPA is in the sort of data maintenance space, where you might have various departments in your business, including HR, customer service, and marketing. And they need to routinely update data, and this is data spanning your customers, let's say personnel data, and this is data that's constantly changing. And you could set up RPA bots that automatically update those relevant data from either inbound emails you receive from customers, or online forms, whatever that source of update is, and really to ensure that all of those systems used by these departments accesses that single source of truth and that kind of error-free data, which is the latest data. And also data validation. Data validation is really important because we from a traditional perspective, a lot of the sort of data validation routines are embedded within in databases. So what we want to do is we want to kind of check data against sort of publicly available data sources, to make sure that if that data is still current, And RPA is a very, very good tool to do so, where you can train this tool to go to various other data sources, including sort of online data sources, where it kind of scrapes data from websites and make sure that data you've got is still valid, and go update your sources of truth in your backend, for example. And also, if you have inbound data where you have to extract data from PDFs, scan documents, and any other types of forms, including sort of Excel spreadsheets, you could use RPA really to extract that data. Use pattern recognition, for example, when you look at that data, and when you need to go key that data into other systems, you could use sort of machine learning algorithms to make sure that this data is valid, and you could at lightning speed, really, from extraction to transformation to loading, very quickly get that data into your business, into your organization, and also maintain it. So again, just around the sort of the data extraction, data validation, updates, bots or RPA bots are really, really useful in doing so. And of course, they can do this 24/7 without any errors. So a very, very, very useful use case for RPA.
Yeah, and I think so. You mentioned customer satisfaction a couple of times, and if you think about maybe insurance claims again, and insurance contracts and all that stuff in general, legal documents, sometimes if there would be a claim or some event where someone needs to go through this huge amount of data or these documents, I think it doesn't really make sense anymore that a human is going through thousands of pages, or just an army of people going through thousands of pages and documents. So with RPA and with the relevant connected systems like OCR, that kind of stuff, you could have your digital worker going through document to document, finding relevant information, and getting through maybe claims processing, medical documentations, doctors' statements, or whatever, in sort of no time, and then it might be presented to some other, to a human to verify lots of things.
Yes.
But that whole process then so reduced, and you can maybe pay out to a critical ill patient much earlier. So that will be customer satisfaction. You could really do have a big you have a big impact. Those kind of scenarios are out there, and wait for being processed. I think more than 50% of business already thinking about doing RPA and probably doing early things of RPA. But if you think about the other 50%, just globally, on companies who are not tapped, who have not tapped into that opportunity, they can use these use cases to look at, to get started, really. There's more. I think there's more like reports. I think there are people in businesses they're doing reports at the end of the week, at the end of a day, very often, and end of the month, very typical month-end reports. And then usually what happens is you copy data from one spreadsheet, another system is producing another spreadsheet, and then someone is creating a nice Excel macro. It's merging information together, and that can take a couple of people in the business a couple of hours per week, per month, and this is not something we should do. We should do manually. So these reports, the report compilations, they're also based on very strict rules, and this is a great area where digital workers can take over. When it's rules based, you can replicate it easily, your digital worker can just do these reports and merge data together, hundreds of spreadsheets if that is the case, and it will be done. Do the analytics maybe behind it in another tool, and produces the output in without errors and on time. yeah, and you have the time back for your team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think reporting mass generation of management information, you can also train your bots to obviously react to specific issues that's highlighted with inside the report.
Yes.
So if there is some alerts that you train the bots to pick up on, then those reports can actually be very valuable to draw somebody's attention to the fact that there's something specific in the report that needs somebody's attention. Whether or not there's a critical issue with the provisioning of services, for example, you can actually train the bot then to not just generate those reports, but also actually to react to something that's within inside the report and get the right people involved to be able to solve this issue. And also let's just look at communication since we're talking about it. It's not just about creating and sending these reports, but if you have got any requirement to generate mass emails where you have to rely on data from multiple systems to be sourced and to produce these emails to be sent out to potentially clients or prospects, depending what you want to use mass emailing for. It's a very easy task to do that with RPA because you can actually source that data from very disparate sources. And if you send these emails frequently, this is a perfect use case to actually automate that process. And it kind of brings me to activities with inside, commercial functions, including sales and marketing. You can automate something like lead nurturing, where leads arrive from various channels, including, lead collection forms on the website, from vendors, emails, LinkedIn, and all of that can go into your automated lead nurturing RPA process. If you look at sales, of course, we want salespeople to focus on building relationships and selling, but a lot of their times is spent on operational activities in most organizations. So with inside your sales function, you could automate those operational activities out of the picture and allow your salespeople to focus more on selling rather than the administrative burdens that comes with the day-to-day job of selling, for example.
Absolutely, and that specific areas or these specific areas in sales functions could be creating the invoices. Yeah, so as part of the sales process, at some point you have to send out an email maybe with an invoice, or even send a letter these days. But even that could be handled by a bot. I think. The key thing is that the bot will help the salesperson collecting all that data and making sure that data exists correctly in the CRM system and in the finance system, accounting system, instead of someone, maybe the salesperson, only typing that stuff into the CRM, and for some reason on a Friday afternoon they might forget to press a button or do something. It might not transfer properly. So the bot can make sure it's always run consistent. CRM data, accounting data is all up to date, and then invoices are sent out automatically. I think that's is an easy one. Usually, salespeople, they don't like all that admin stuff, like you mentioned before. Salespeople are good usually in selling and not with this admin stuff. We all demand them, as I think as business owners, that they do all that stuff. But if we can help them with a bot, I think they will be very thankful. And that as well was updating the CRM in general. It is time consuming. Sure, sometimes they have to enter very specific information in to just track what's going on with this customer. But it's generally very time consuming, unproductive time for them. And So this is where the bot can support the sales agent and the salespeople to collect all that information and to make sure it is all updated in the right places, and sometimes even the sales agent doesn't need to go into the CRM system, so the bot can take care of stuff from outside, maybe getting information from other systems. But this is one very big area in sales, and if this system is not right, it produces all sorts of errors, which is not helpful for the business. And if we can get it error free, then everyone benefits from this one.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mention the kind of the handover between the sales force that actually looks after kind of selling, and then also from a accounting perspective, which does the billing. We do see there are gaps out there in some of the use cases we see, where that kind of that smooth handover from your customer relationship management system to your accounting system. There are, like I said, gaps in that process, and RPA is a perfect place to sort of fill those gaps and really make sure that the transition between your sales cycle to your billing cycle is really as smooth as it can be. And of course, you talked about, Sascha, about updating CRM, making sure that your CRM is updated with all your customer interactions. Of course, that there's a wealth of use cases that you can deploy RPA with, that it gets all of those different sources of information that pertains to customer interactions, and go and update your CRM so that that information is visible, to the rest of the business, and in terms of kind of just on this track of keeping data updated. Sometimes there is a lack of integration between HR and CRM systems, and RPA bots can actually ensure that CRM changes are uploaded to kind of like the scorecards the sales reps use, so that they can see their progress in real time. So that's a really important use case as well. And it all kind of just boils down again to the fact that people want to see up-to-date information. When we talk about customer relationship management, we all rely on sort of good data points that comes from a variety of different systems that we need to ensure that our customers are happy. And of course, the RPA is a very, very good tool to be able to source that information and keep it up to date. So it is available. It gives you a very good picture of your customer record. We always call it the 360 review. Whatever you call it, know your customer. So all of that information is really important. So that everybody has got the information at their fingertips, and if they do engage with their customers, it does feel like, from a customer engagement perspective, we know our customer, we know what to sell them, we know the history with us. So again, very, very important.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. This is one important area. So we have to make our customers happy, but at the same time, we have to look as well at some of the other departments. And one very important department which comes up in our conversations and is I think sort of waking up more and more, was HR automation. So the HR departments, how could we sort out the problems for them? I think a big one in HR is candidate sourcing. So the whole process of finding people and making sure everything is collected. I think that's something we can really support them. I think there's some sort of systems out there, but generally companies have quite old and legacy HR systems, and we can use the bots to help them there with everything around these legacy HR systems. For example, aggregating CVs, collecting assessment results, and interview notes. And we can put this all then in the right places in the HR system, because ideally, we need to document most of the stuff we do with our recruits. And we need to have all that information available, so we can also act on GDPR and all that stuff. So the bot can help us to make to fill the gaps of these old HR systems.
Yeah, and you talk about HR, and I think another important use case is, of course, employment history verification, and obviously that process has got numerous routines and steps, such as, I don't know, arranging interviews and everything that follows up from that, and also maintaining the records of did we verify this employee, their previous employer, and all of that can be drastically reduced using RPA and stringing that process together and automating that process. A recent study done by UiPath, where they provided a case study, and they rolled out an automation program, with inside this use case, in roughly over 8 weeks. And they calculated that they reduced around about 40% of the manual labor that went into these activity. So, which is a very impressive, reduction, in the sort of the time it takes, for this recruiting process.
Yeah, I think there's so many use cases on the chatbot side. We recently covered just on the HR side, I don't know, 40 different use cases, and we see maybe some very similar candidates here where then RPA can jump in and hiring, onboarding, and headcount reduction. So these are very typical use cases, especially for growing or shrinking firms, unfortunately, since the pandemic. So shrinking firms, hiring and firing is significant in terms of workload for HR and everyone who is supporting them. As well the IT departments, facility management. So all these things and of the process can be quite costly. And then putting this in sort of solutions. I think RPA can be again the glue between all these different things, can streamline the process. And I think the big benefit of RPA is it can do that very quickly. So instead of putting lots of solutions in there, big systems which cover all these areas, with RPA we can really see fast results. I think with the most RPA platforms use low code, so that helps us as well to get these solutions already. These processes defined very, very quickly. So by automating these kind of processes, hiring, onboarding, and headcount reduction, I think you can really speed up the whole process and free up again the typical one, free up time within these departments.
Yeah, and of course, once you onboarded your employees, then it's the sort of typical run-of-the-mill processes that you have to do periodically, and that includes payroll automation. Now, there's a lot of software out there that does the automation of payroll, but there's always going to be gaps where you have to transfer data from one system to another system. And typically what people do is they do that using Excel spreadsheets and, mirage of other type of tools. So I think if you look at payroll automation in general, RPA is a very, very good way that you can actually increase the automation within this payroll management process, by sourcing the information, running those processes, and also ensuring the accuracy. And, this is also true for other types of processes within HR, for instance, absence management, where there's absentees, either vacations or, all of these things that a member of staff is not within your business. How does that process look like? What is the types of systems that you need to actually interact with to log the absence and manage that? And, I think a lot of businesses out there probably have got various places, maybe a core HR system. But again, I think RPA is just one of those technologies that bring all of that stuff together into a single process. We look at things like workers' compensation claims, and again, there might have been an injury at work, or illness needs to be reported, and there could be a claims investigation that happens, for compensation claim, for example. So again, quite a complicated set of activities that needs to happen, but very standard, very easy to actually describe. And RPA is a really, really good technology to automate that. And if we look at things like expense management, for example, again, the same thing where you might have an expense system or you might not have one, but either way, you could use the RPA bot to sort of source the data from an expense submission, perhaps send an automated email to somebody that needs to approve it, or if it's part of a bigger workflow, but really just kind of be, like you said, Sascha, that glue that actually brings things together in terms of providing that nice end-to-end process experience.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think to wrap up on the HR use cases, we discussed this in this other episode all about chatbot use cases. So if with a RPA, we have the opportunity to put an HR virtual assistant in place for our business, and we can then allow our staff to communicate with a chatbot for lots of these things we just went through, and then the chatbot will then do the communication behind the scenes through RPA, maybe into an old expense management system, into an old claims management system, into the old legacy HR system, but all through this virtual assistant. Can be a quite engaging conversation. They can ask questions, they can book days off, and all through this chatbot channel. And it's a very, very exciting topic in general, and it's growing. So the combination chatbot and RPA is definitely something to look at. So if you have your RPA processes already in place, or you're thinking about this, also think about chatbots, definitely. And I think that's a lot for one session. I'm sure we will cover far more use cases. Please submit your ideas on our website, theautomationguys.net. We are always looking out for great ideas to talk about. If you have a specific area like operations, or so you like to learn more about use cases in that field, or maybe in finance, or specifically in financial services and banking. So there's so much more we can cover. Logistics, I think, so there are plenty of use cases, and let us know. Hopefully you could take a few points away, and maybe you can jump straight into action. Just feel free to reach out to Arno and myself, get a trial, and then we can get you going very quickly. So I think that will be it for today. Thank you very much for listening, and let's automate it. Unfortunately, that's it again with this episode of the Process and Automation podcast. If you liked this episode, please give us a 5-star rating, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any upcoming episode. We hope you will tune in next time, and until then, let's automate it.